This episode is brought to you by CuriosityStream. CuriosityStream is a subscription streaming service that offers over 2,000 documentaries and non-fiction titles from some of the world's best filmmakers, including exclusive originals. If you're enjoying our videos here at VisualPolitik, why not, once you're done here of course, pop on over to CuriosityStream, try it out for free, and explore some of their political content. They've got dozens of documentary titles all about politics, so you're sure to find something you'll enjoy. It's also available on many platforms: Roku, Android, Xbox One, Smart TV, iOS, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Amazon Kindle, Apple TV, and it's also available worldwide, so wherever you are, you'll be able to get it. Unlimited access starts at just $2.99 a month, and for you guys, the first 30 days are completely free if you sign up at curiositystream.com/VisualPolitik and use the promo code VisualPolitik, one word, during the sign-up process. That's a great way to support this show, keep us making more videos. Check it out through the link below. And let's get into it. Despite being a small country with barely 20 million inhabitants, for at least the last 7 decades, Taiwan has been a hotspot of international politics. Its official name is not Taiwan, but the Republic of China. This is because its origin goes back to the country that emerged in China after the Xinhai Revolution of 1912, a revolution that led to the fall of the Qing dynasty. However, the story doesn't end there. A few years later, China was to face a new nightmare with the invasion of the Japanese Empire, which managed to control the richest and most powerful parts of the new country, and whose capitulation in 1945 served as a breeding ground for the outbreak of a new power struggle, that of Mao's communists against the Republicans of the Kuomintang nationalists. And so you can probably guess who won, right? Mao was able to establish his People's Republic in mainland China, while the leaders of the counter-revolution and what remained of their army settled on the island of Formosa. There they created a state considered for decades to be the legitimate successor of the model government that existed in mainland China prior to the invasion of Japan and the subsequent communist revolution. And in this way, for more than 30 years, the nationalist government of Taiwan was, for many countries, the valid interlocutor, the government of China, the natural successor of the Xinhai Revolution, the legitimate government of the entire country. Viewed from this perspective, Mao's regime was nothing more than a government that illegitimately occupied mainland China. In fact, that has traditionally been the claim of the Taiwanese authorities. And we need to tread carefully here, because we are not exactly talking about a democracy, but of a rigid dictatorship under the control of Chiang Kai-shek. To give you an idea, there were no elections held there until 1996. In spite of this, and thanks to its alliance with the United States, until 1971, the Republic of China, i.e. Taiwan, occupied the seat that belongs to China at the United Nations, to the detriment of the People's Republic, founded and controlled by Mao Zedong. In 1971, however, everything began to change. That year, Taiwan lost its seat at the UN in favor of the People's Republic of China. Of course, a country can only have one representative at the UN. If there are two governments that consider themselves to be legitimate, then you have to choose one or the other. And therein lies the problem. Taiwan has never been considered as an independent country, but as the legitimate China. What a mess. From that moment on, international recognition and the global influence of Taiwan has done nothing but plummet. So what happened to the Taiwan that was once fully recognized by all the major Western powers? What will become of it now that mainland China has become a superpower? What happens to Taiwan's claims? And what is even more important, what can we expect after the enormous protests that have occurred in Hong Kong and the recent presidential elections in January of 2020 in Taiwan?
From legitimate heir to political nuisance.
As I've just explained, for many years the government of Taiwan was, for most countries, the sovereign representative of the Chinese nation. Of course, the increasing influence of the People's Republic of China, together with the economic awakening of the Asian giant, has really turned the tables. Taiwan began losing recognition from all the countries, with a few exceptions from smaller nations. The United States, Taiwan's most important ally, officially switched its recognition to the People's Republic of China to the detriment of the Republic of China under the Carter administration in 1979.
The United States recognizes the government of the People's Republic of China as a sole legal government of China. Within this context, the people of the United States will maintain cultural, commercial, and other unofficial relations with the people of Taiwan.
Currently, only 14 countries, in addition to the Vatican, recognize the Republic of China as the valid state of China. This situation, and the fact that even the fiercest allies of Taiwan ceased to officially recognize them, led to the island's government abandoning its claim as the legitimate government of China in the early 1990s. Since then, Taiwan has relaxed its efforts on recognition and has opted for a strategy that is becoming increasingly clear and is gaining more support over time. Not to be recognized as the Republic of China, but only as Taiwan. Given the story so far, that makes perfect sense. The Taiwanese understand all too well that the political, social, economic, and democratic measures they have taken over the years on the island have created a great divide between it and mainland China. The lifestyle, current politics, and society in Taiwan are completely different to what exists in the People's Republic of China under the Communist Party's dictatorship. There are increasing differences in Taiwanese society, and the island's government already understands how insurmountable these are and doesn't view the possibility of melding with mainland China worth the struggle. Purely and simply, Taiwan is a foreign country.
China's suppression of Taiwan in the international arena cannot change the indisputable fact of Taiwan's existence, nor can it coerce the Taiwanese people into abandoning their democratic and free way of life. Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
We could say that those who only a couple of generations ago founded a country of exiled people on an island have managed to create an independent nation with its own idiosyncrasies. And that is precisely the idea defended by the current president, Tsai Ing Wen, of the Democratic Progressive Party. But wait a moment, there is one more important thing to point out. This particular vision is not shared by all. The Kuomintang, another major party in Taiwan, defends a very different position to build closer ties and come to an understanding with the Chinese regime. But hold on a moment, does that name Kuomintang ring any bells to you? Yes, exactly. The Kuomintang is the party founded by the nationalist Republican leaders who fought against the Chinese Communist Revolution and established present-day Taiwan. Yes, that's right. Even though it sounds incredible, the party that once went head-to-head with the Chinese regime now advocates to be their friend. And there are those people who say nothing ever changes in politics. So much for that. Now the question that crops up is, what on earth has led to such a turnaround? Well, money plays a crucial part in every aspect of this story. And I'm not just referring to bribes, kickbacks, or opaque agreements of all kinds, but to the possibility of taking advantage of the huge economy that has been developed in mainland China. And it is precisely here where we hit a crucial question. Which would you choose? Fight for the full independence of your country, although it means risking economic relations with an Asian superpower, or seek an understanding with Beijing? This is not an easy question by any means. This is the big question the Taiwanese are trying to answer, and their collective answer will determine the electoral result. Now, before we go on, there is a question we haven't covered. What's been happening with Taiwan since it began losing international recognition? Has it been isolated? The short answer is no. Taiwan is an exception. It is not officially considered a country, but there is de facto international recognition regarding its sovereignty and self-government. The former international embassies have become economic and cultural offices, which act as embassies de facto as well. The Taiwanese have identity documents and passports issued by their own government that are internationally recognized. And this is something that angers Beijing. Few things bother the government of the People's Republic of China as much as seeing how Taiwan is, in practice, an independent country.
Taiwan must and will be reunited with China. Independence will only bring hardship, and the reunification with the mainland was an inevitable requirement for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese people. Xi Jinping.
But do not think for a second that they put up with this. Oh no. The Chinese government, the government of Xi Jinping, has been harassing the island for years with strategies designed to wear them down. How exactly? Well, many of them I'm sure you can imagine. China's pockets are extremely deep, and don't make the mistake of thinking there are only a couple of countries willing to cast Taiwan aside in exchange for a handful of investments. We all know that money talks. But hold on a moment, because all of this does not mean that Taiwan is alone in the world. That's something that China hasn't managed to achieve. Another thing that, by the way, drives them crazy as well. You see, even if it is only recognized diplomatically by a handful of governments, the Taiwanese retain many allies and common interests with a lot of countries. In particular, there's an agreement with the US that has been in place since the end of the 70s, which states that the great American power ensures that the island will be stocked with military equipment.
Changes in the diplomatic arena are indeed challenging, but Taiwan still has many friends around the world willing to stand with us, and we are not alone. Tsai Ing Wen, President of Taiwan.
So as we've already discussed in a previous video that I'll leave a link for in the description, the Taiwanese government has opted for the strategy of differentiation. We have nothing to do with China, we are Taiwan, and we do not intend to rule over anyone other than ourselves, nor allow anyone to rule over us. This is the message from President Tsai that has struck a deep chord with Taiwanese voters. In the recent presidential elections, the victory of Tsai has been overwhelming. She got 58% of the votes, a difference of almost 20 points over the Kuomintang party of Han Kuo-yu. So this is much more than a simple victory. What Tsai has done electorally is take a steamroller to the other candidates. But why is it that the Taiwanese have voted in this way, despite the constant warnings of Beijing against the new government of Tsai Ing Wen?
Taiwan, thermometer of Chinese expansionism.
The recent elections of January 2020 in Taiwan have been a tremendous democratic slap in the face to the Beijing regime. With the lessons learned from the recent events in Hong Kong, the Taiwanese have seen the eyes of the beast clearer than ever. The constant meddling in Beijing by Hong Kongese affairs, the violation of the special status of the city, and the huge protests to claim back freedom have led the Taiwanese to lose the very little trust that they had left in China. That is why they have voted against Kuomintang and its trust in Beijing. Trust which they claim would result in economic stability. That is to say, Chinese money and peace in the region, or put another way, a reduction in the influence of the United States. However, the opinion of the Taiwanese people has been very different. The nearly 20-point difference achieved by Tsai Ing Wen marks the greatest electoral victory since elections have been held in the country.
The results of this election carry an added significance. They've shown that when our sovereignty is threatened, the Taiwanese people will shout our determination even more loudly back. Tsai Ing Wen, President of Taiwan.
Tsai has been able to take advantage of the fear the Taiwanese have about the loss of freedom due to the influence of China, and it's a point she drove home in her final campaign speech. Listen.
The young people of Hong Kong have used their lives, as well as their blood and tears, to demonstrate to us that one country, two systems is unworkable. Tomorrow, let our young people of Taiwan demonstrate to them that the values of democracy and freedom will overcome all difficulties. Tsai Ing Wen, President of Taiwan.
The difficulty difficulties that Tsai is talking about are international political isolation and loss of investments. The Asian giant is hell-bent on isolating Taipei in order to stifle its economy and force the island nation to surrender to their demands if they want to maintain their standard of living. And to this end, they are not hesitating to flash some cash. We have seen it most recently with two of the few countries that still recognize Taiwan as the legitimate government of China, the Solomon Islands and Kiribati.
China extends influence in Pacific as Solomon Islands break with Taiwan, The Guardian. Taiwan loses another ally as Kiribati cuts ties, BBC.
Two small territories in the Pacific that could have been key for the United States in the containment of Chinese expansionist aspirations. But now the balance seems tilted more than ever towards Beijing. Of the 14 countries that still recognize Taiwan, there are only 4 in the South Pacific area. And the recognition, or not, of Taiwan by these countries implicitly represents their level of loyalty to the United States against China, which leaves us very striking results. The lax approach of the United States in this part of the world, coupled with the giant deterring power of Chinese money, have ensured that no wars nor military ships were needed to ensure control of these seas, which are very important for world trade. But let's not stray from the issue. The thing is that now, with another 4 years of the independentist Tsai ruling Taiwan, it is expected that relations with Beijing will become colder than an ice cream in the middle of the North Pole. And when we talk about diplomatic relations in China, we're often talking about economic blockades. That is the challenge that President Tsai is facing, because if there is one thing Beijing has argued for both actively and passively, it's that they will never tolerate the full independence of Taiwan.
We reject the one country, two systems model. We value the lifestyle of democracy, and we defend our sovereignty. Tsai Ing Wen.
But now it's your turn. If you were Taiwanese, which would you choose? Your political and social freedoms, or China and the business? Do you think that Taiwan can continue growing and developing, leaving the Chinese superpower aside? Well, leave your answer in the comments below, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please do hit that like button if you did, and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos. Please do also check out our friends at the Reconsider Media podcast. They provided the vocals in this episode that were not mine. Also, this channel is possible because of Patreon and our patrons on that platform. Please do consider joining them and supporting our mission of providing independent political coverage. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.
If you want to learn more about politics and world affairs and hear some more of my lovely voice, come check out the Reconsider podcast, where we don't do the thinking for you. Find Reconsider at www.reconsidermedia.com or on Apple or Google Play or your favorite podcatcher.